I wish I could do things like any normal person should. Make some noise instead of walking around like I understood. Maybe if I could stop looking like such a prick.
At the root of this dilemma is the way we view mental health in this country. Whether an illness affects your heart, your leg, or your brain, it's still an illness, and there should be no distinction. Michelle Obama. My name is Lindsey, and I'm going to take you on a journey back in time. The journey that was once my childhood. While I tell you my story, I want you to think of someone you might know with a mental illness, or even just how the stigma of mental illness is still so strong, although it's already 2017. I want to bring awareness to this large issue that is considered shameful. It is somehow still considered shameful. I want you to imagine being 9 years old and working in your parents' bakery, selling and eating cupcakes and brownies and freshly baked breads, getting compliments from older women on how adorable you are. It sounds great, right? But now I want you to imagine all of this with one addition. Your dad has an undiagnosed case of paranoid schizophrenia, and he is your boss, and he's a very angry boss. I'm the middle of 3 children, also known as the people pleaser, the responsible one, which also meant I was chosen to work with my dad at the bakery. And because I'm such a people pleaser, I was totally thrilled about this. I thought they never even noticed me, not even when I was putting out the fires within the family. In retrospect, I realize now why I was chosen. They needed the child who would let things go. It was a war zone down there, and they needed the peacekeeper, not the know-it-all, the baby of the family. And they were struggling. They couldn't afford to hire anyone, and even if they could, no one could deal with my dad. So of course, I was more than happy to help. In the beginning, it wasn't so bad. My dad was always a grumpy man, and I knew to obey him and stay out of his way, so I did this. But staying out of his way became impossible. He would seek me out and criticize me for not working hard enough. It started with things like that. Then it led to him screaming at me in front of customers and embarrassing me in front of my regulars. I knew something was wrong, but at this point, I had so much anger and hate towards him that, honestly, I didn't even care. Over the years, it became very bad. I would find him drawing portals on doors in the back of the bakery on the walls, and they were supposedly portals to escape from the aliens and terrorists that he thought were soon to attack. Sometimes I would find him laughing to himself and talking as if there was someone else in the room, but it was in his head. But at one point I actually began to think that maybe there was a ghost or something, and I got really scared. This was the beginning of my struggle with obsessive-compulsive disorder. The first time I started washing my hands was when I was around 12 years old. It didn't begin with the washing though. It began with the thought of contamination. The thought of contamination is what we would call the obsession, and the washing of the hands to rid of the contamination would be called the compulsion or ritual. My first obsession and compulsion began with the spinach pie. I used to eat around 4 a day. These spinach pies that my dad made were what I lived for. They were just so delicious. But what was once an enjoyment of mine soon became a horrible task. I would grab the pie with the wax paper so I wouldn't actually be touching it, but then a customer would come in and I would not only deal with their organisms on their hands, but I would have to deal with the organisms on the money that they would hand to me. This freaked me out, and if they coughed or sneezed, I could feel my heart race and an anger creep up. I just wanted to scream to them, "Cover your mouth," or "Don't go outside if you're sick." So I'd go in the back, wash my hands, get yelled at, and then tried to eat the pie before another customer came in. Not only did this obsession get stronger, but so did the anger. I had no idea what was going on. I felt as though there was a monster in my head and I couldn't get rid of him. But worse, I didn't understand him or what he wanted. Once the peacekeeper, I was now a scared soldier on the front lines of battle. I felt like I was losing my mind and I no longer had patience with my dad. I screamed at him when he scolded me. I punched holes in my walls, but then washed my hands till they bled so I wouldn't get an infection. And then I'd cover them in Neosporin and Band-Aids. This happened over and over. I never wanted to hurt myself, but I had no one to talk to. I had no idea what was happening, and I just wanted to cry and wash my hands. I just needed control because I felt like I was in control of nothing, not even my own mind. By the time I was 17, my dad was officially diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia after having a complete nervous breakdown. My parents lost the bakery and moved into housing, so I of course had nowhere to go and decided to move in with my boyfriend at the time. He had 3 roommates and they were all heavy drinkers, around the ages of 18 to 22. Let's just say they weren't the cleanest of humans. Everything was great for a while. I was partying all the time and drinking so much that I barely cared about anything, especially germs. I thought I had this miraculous recovery. I was working 7 days a week and coming home to a 6-pack of beer. This was the life. So I had thought. Over the months, little by little, the fear of germs started to creep back into my life. It started with the thought of how dirty everything in that house was. I would clean things but got scared of the germs that I was cleaning. I thought because I was so close to the bacteria when cleaning that I was the only one getting exposed, and even if I wasn't getting sick right away, that it was because the germs were culminating in my system, waiting to build the perfect storm in my body. I would have my boyfriend eat things before me so I knew I wasn't getting poisoned. I would waste food and water bottles in fear of contamination. If I left a bottle out, I couldn't drink it. I was convinced that someone put a drug or poison inside of it. At the age of 23, I had the cancer scare, the first of many. My obsessions were now not only with germs and infectious diseases, but with all diseases. Everything and anything was fair game. Because I hadn't eaten in so long from fear of contamination, my stomach was messed up. I was still drinking beer and not eating enough food, so naturally my stomach was inflamed. This concept was obvious to everybody but me. I knew what was wrong and it wasn't inflammation. It was obviously stomach cancer. My brain was convinced of it, and because of this I began to plan my funeral in my head. I was so scared to die that I couldn't eat anything, and because I couldn't eat anything from fear, my stomach became more inflamed, leading to more pain. It was an awful snowball effect that I nor anyone else could stop. I was already at a healthy weight, so when I lost 15 pounds, I convinced even the doctor that I had something seriously wrong with me. So they gave me an endoscopy, and for those few days before the results came back, I couldn't leave the house or the bed. Why bother? I was just going to die anyways. Needless to say, when the results came back, I found out that I was going to live. It was just acid reflux. But that didn't really matter. I knew that I was going to eventually get something, and soon, and then that was going to kill me. If it wasn't meningitis, then definitely West Nile in the summer. And if not that, then I was going to get the strain of E. coli that is super deadly. And even if I took antibiotics to help cure something like pneumonia, I could still die from C. diff, the bacteria that can overgrow in your gut after antibiotics. This horror story of impending doom went on until I was about 27 years old. Believe it or not, the turning point in my life occurred after a visit with my dad. I remember looking at him and realized that if I kept on going on like this, that I would turn into him one day. I loved my dad and had forgiven him. And he had never had a chance to get help, but I did. I had already missed one too many classes and days of work, shed one too many tears, and gasped one too many panicked breaths. I was getting help, and soon. After about 4 weeks, the medication started to kick in, and I couldn't believe that I had lived like that for so long before taking care of myself. But it's not like a physical disease. When you lose your mind, you don't know that you need help or even how to get it. And never mind that, not many people believe you. It's not tangible, and there's no scientific blood tests. You are seen as weak or weird, or maybe you are seen as someone who likes attention. These are all the reasons that I never got help before. I was embarrassed. And I didn't know how real and debilitating mental illness was until I got better. Now at 34, I'm still not completely cured, but I take my meds and go to therapy. As long as I keep getting the help that I need, I will be okay enough, especially compared to the past. And I have made it a point to help others that I know who are struggling, for they may not know themselves, and I cannot bear to know someone is going through the same after feeling it all myself.
I wish I could do things like any normal person should. Make some noise instead of walking around like
I want to thank you for letting me take you on my journey and listening to my story. I also want you to please help spread awareness of the misunderstanding and stigma of mental illness, and please learn the signs if you see a loved one in need. Even if it's just a friend who is struggling temporarily, that can lead to the eruption of a well-hidden psychological event. The mind is a powerful and unpredictable thing. Don't ever forget that. Once again, thank you so much for listening. This is Lindsey Ribeiro, an OCD survivor.